Welcome to the 49th episode of Downtime Podcast. Today I am with my different co-host, Brandon.
Hello,
I'm
Brandon.
We don't have Jeremy on the line this week, but yeah, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, I'm different.
Yes. And today we have a very special episode. So, previously, Brandon and I played Starbound, and that was pretty much the game that almost defined last summer. And
Starbound zombies.
I know. And today we have a very special guest. We have the game composer for Starbound, as well as just a general composer for other games, ads, what have you. Curtis Schweitzer.
Hello.
And welcome to Downtime. Thank you for joining.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing just great.
We're doing good too. I mean, great.
That's not very convincing great. I feel like there's maybe
Phantasmal?
Phantasmal. I like that. It's sort
Yes.
of almost like phantasmagorical or something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, let's keep adding on to the word.
Yes.
Once again, thank you for joining. We're both huge fans of the game and the soundtrack, and when I reached out to you, I was like really excited, by the way, when you responded. I was like, oh my god, he responded.
Yeah, I can. It's always that first email is always a little nerve-wracking, I feel like, when you don't know somebody, but
Who are you?
That's true.
How did you get this email?
I guess to start off the podcast, go ahead and just talk a little bit about your background, like in general and with music, what instruments you play, what type of genres you like, and what influenced you.
Just talk for hours.
I grew up, in piano lessons, like, a lot of other kids. I was active in, music programs in school. My primary instrument is piano. It's always been the thing that I play. It's featured very heavily in Starbound and most of my other work because it's the instrument that I play, so it usually ends up sort of having a really important spot. When I was in high school, I started doing some kind of arranging. I would be playing something or be singing something or have some sort of piece of music that I was responsible for, and I would say, it'd be better if we, changed this. And so I would go and, attempt to rewrite it. Not always successfully, of course, but, and that sort of got me into this idea that, well, I could do the whole thing. Why take a piece of music that already exists when I could, write a new piece? So that sort of got me into
That's the spirit.
Yeah. And yeah, that's kind of just the way that evolved. And I ended up going to college. I ended up getting a bachelor's degree in theory and composition. And, you graduate from college and you expect to be this, great concert music composer. And you soon realize that the world has a lot of concert music composers. And that you're probably not going to be able to compete with Eric Whitacre, say, or John Adams. So you go into commercial music, which I always had sort of really enjoyed. I grew up listening to movie soundtracks, all the, late 90s sorts of people, John Williams, James Horner, all those sort of 90s era, I guess I would say, composers. So that's sort of been the influences on me. Thomas Newman's a big influence. So that's kind of how I got to where I was when I did Starbound. So
how exactly did you get into game composing?
When I was in college, I had done some film work, and so I always sort of looked at that. I don't want to say as a backup, but as a potential career. And so I had done some short films for, student filmmakers at the university, and so I thought, well, if I'm going to get into commercial composing, I should probably be doing, films and games. But the thing that really sort of kickstarted that was I was just on the game dev subreddit, and I happened to have posted some music there, and Ty Uri, who's the handle for Finn Bryce, he's sort of the founder of Chucklefish, had heard some, and he just contacted me out of the blue and said, hey, do you want to work on a prospective game that we've been developing? And it just was kind of like a rocket from there. It was really very sort of serendipitous, I guess. So,
would you find your skill set was kind of intuitively laid out for game soundtrack design?
I think that game design and film design share a lot of sort of the same kind of vocabulary in a lot of ways. You see a lot of film composers and TV composers getting into games these days. Bear McCreary, who's famous for his like Battlestar Galactica scores and stuff like that, is the one who just scored the new God of War game, for example. So I think there's a lot of sort of common vocabulary there. And being sort of a film person, a film music person, I found that it was pretty natural to just move straight into games. So
that's really cool. I especially assume that's probably true of games like God of War that are becoming more of a theatrical piece rather than just a straightforward game. I know Starbound was more of a game rather than a story-driven cinematic type of game. And I feel like music, even in those situations, is very, very important for the feeling of the game and when you're playing it, how your emotional responses to everything. So it's really cool to hear that. Was there anything particularly like notable about the Starbound experience that you enjoyed quite a bit, or not? Or would you like to? Nah.
I would say just like the freedom. I was amazed at, when you come from all the commercial music I had done before games was for film, and film is a really fun medium, and all the people I've ever worked with there have been universally lovely, but you're very much locked to that film. You're locked to that picture. You have this series of points you have to hit. It needs to be scary here, and there needs to be a jump here. There needs to be a triumphant part here. So you're sort of locked to somebody else's, I don't want to say structure, but sort of their vision there. And with games, it's just kind of, sometimes it's just this wide open field. I mean, it was amazing. I would just write a track, I'd send it along. They'd say yay or nay, or, give me a little bit of feedback about general style things. And then they would just kind of throw it in the game, see how it worked, and we'd go from there. I mean, it was very much a free collaboration, I would say.
That sounds really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
So it was definitely sounds like a larger chance for you to be creative on your own right and put a large part of yourself in the music rather than trying to design for the customer or the client.
Yeah,
if you will.
Absolutely. My guidance was sort of, we want it to be very atmospheric and evocative. That was pretty much all that, and eventually we settled on orchestral. There's a whole story there about how we ended up there, but we actually kind of did 2 full soundtracks, one which we didn't really end up using as much of, but yeah.
Well, I think the orchestral really does work to a certain extent. It is very a unique flavor, I think, as far as that type of game is concerned. So I enjoy it, though.
Yeah, it was a really interesting. I found when we first, they first show you the game, it's got this sort of pixel graphics kind of look to it, and you think, well, it needs to kind of have a lot of synths and maybe even straight up 8-bit, stuff, chiptune kind of style music in it, and there's nothing wrong with that kind of music, but we found that just as we started incorporating more and more organic samples into it, as we did that, it sort of just opened up everything, and it was amazing how well that sort of I don't want to say dated look, but that sort of intentionally retro look worked with a more sort of organic, sort of the opposite of that in the soundtrack. So
that's really interesting.
I'm just curious, how long did it take for you to complete the Starbound soundtrack?
It was quite a while. Like I said, we had originally started and we were doing a very synth-heavy, maybe some orchestra elements, but really focusing on a lot of electronic sound sources at first. And then it was about halfway through that I liked a lot of the tracks, but I wasn't loving the whole thing together. And Finn had heard a piece that I had actually written for choir and really, really liked it, and had asked, hey, what does this look like in the game? Is this something you'd be willing to have in the game? And so I just took the MIDI file and did a quick realization of it, and we threw it up against the game, and it seemed like it worked really well, and it ended up going out in a trailer, and from there on it was just all orchestral music, and so I just basically composed a second score for it that was all based on orchestral sounds. So that was kind of how that worked.
And you could definitely hear your passion with the piano in a lot of those pieces. I think it works quite well.
Yeah, that's kind of. Thank you for the kind words. I mean, the piano part is, I think, the sort of I don't want to say the soul of it, but it's definitely sort of the thing. Yeah, it's sort of what everything rotates around.
How big was the music team working on Starbound?
Originally, I was sort of brought on after they had Salatrus. I'll just use his handle. I'm not sure if he wants his full name out there, but Salatrus had contributed some stuff. They actually had Toby Fox of Undertale had done some work with them at one point. He had sort of, I think, at that point gone off to go, slay his own dragons. But so it was just kind of me and Salatrus, and then their audio guy, Armagon, whose name I know them all by their handles. It's so funny. I can't even think of his name right now. You can look up Armagon anywhere, and that's, yeah. So that was pretty much it. It was just us three for the most part. Really kind of just me and Armagon, because Salatrus kind of decided he was a coder for them, so I think he mostly ended up kind of going back to the coding side. I'm not 100% sure, so.
Get back to work.
Exactly.
What are you over there with the mics?
Salatrus has really great music. To just plug somebody who really has some really great work, I would really encourage everybody to go look up his stuff. It's
Interview him next.
Indeed.
So obviously Starbound is a game like an infinite sandbox game about planets, and I remember looking at your credits, and I actually noticed that there was a common theme in a lot of the things you've composed for, and they kind of all had to do with aerospace in some manner. And I was just wondering if that's just kind of like what you've worked on just because those are the opportunities presented, or if there's also some underlying hobby or interest in aerospace.
Yeah, since Starbound came out, I've been represented by an agent, Fabian Malabello from the Otherworld agency, and he has gotten me a few of those jobs, and he's always sort of apologizing that I promise I'm not trying to pigeonhole you as the space guy, so that just, it really is just kind of like those are the ones that have kind of come to me and have been the ones that have been sort of available to me. The nice thing is it's I feel like my personal style really kind of works with them, so that's good. But yeah, no, there's not really. I don't think there's like an intention on my part to do that. But
okay, well, it works out still. Is there any type of genre that you would like to move into?
Yeah.
I just recently did a game for a company called Plucket. Staxel is some of the Starbound developers, and it's sort of more of it's a little bit more, I don't want to say childlike, but it's a little bit more laid back. It's not centered around conflict. There's no combat in the game. Kind of like a Harvest Moon kind of style, Stardew Valley kind of thing. And I really, really enjoyed that. And every time I go back and listen to that, I always think to myself, I really like this score. I really like how sort of I had this opportunity to do something a little bit different. It wasn't quite so dramatic. It wasn't, there's not quite so much atmosphere in everything. It's just kind of a nice little, I don't want to say, again, it's not a children's score, but it is kind of a children's score. And I really kind of enjoyed that. It was a really nice kind of chill experience. So.
Where do you pull inspiration from when you create any music
one of the things about being sort of a commercial composer is that you sort of learn to go off the things your client gives you, right? Because if you're going off your own stuff, sometimes you can kind of end up off reservation and writing music that doesn't really work for the project. So I always like sort of interrogating the developers or clients that I'm working for to really see like what their inspirations are and try to kind of go off of those. So, in the case of, say, airships, is a sort of a 2D game that is very much described by this genre called diesel punk, which is this very industrial, sort of like steampunk meets the industrial more than the industrial revolution, I guess the diesel revolution. I don't know. It's not a really good way to say that. But yeah, it's kind of like it's going for this kind of zany, otherworldly kind of look. So that's kind of where I went there. So for that one, we have all sorts of bizarre instruments in it. There's a ratchet in that one, like a straight up just a ratchet as a percussion instrument, or didgeridoos. Not because the game is particularly attempting to portray Indigenous peoples of Australia, but because that sound is so unique and so kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yes, didgeridoos are very fun. You should just take every opportunity to put didgeridoos in everywhere.
Right?
Yes.
It reminds me of the score to the film Chicken Run. It has this like huge kazoo choir in it, which I think
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Kazoos are another fantastic instrument.
One of my favorite things, right? So that was sort of a chance to kind of cut loose on something zany, if you will.
Going off of that, then I think it's really cool how even if you're outside of your comfort zone and like a different theme that you have to portray, you can still have fun with it and you're able to be creative.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the nice things about being a composer, being a creative person, is you get kind of get bored after a while and you get to go do something else. So that's always fun.
I've noticed that there are two kinds of clients. There's the ones that want to hear what they want to hear and they want to hire you to make that happen, and then there's the other ones that don't know what they want to hear and they want to hire somebody to show them what they want to hear. What do you find is more common in your practices? I would imagine game field, they already have a lot of clients that know what they want to hear, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, you get a lot of that. You also get a lot of people who are willing to explore different directions. One of the projects I'm working on right now is for the next game Chucklefish is putting out, called Witchbrook. Did they go with Academy? I think they just went with Witchbrook. And it's kind of a little bit more, it's kind of got some Harry Potter elements, if you will, that are kind of in there. And so we did a bunch of demos with Harry Potter-y sounding, chillest everywhere and chromatics and stuff. And we decided, well, that doesn't really, fit the vision very well. So we moved on to something else. And that's a nice experience. I think it's really fun to have tried that. And now that's in my toolbox, right? As a composer, I've now tried to sort of do that style. And if I need it again later, it's there. And it's there because I got a chance to kind of try it out. We ended up going with a little bit different direction, and that's great too. And it's also great sometimes when someone comes to you with a really specific vision. It needs to sound like, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Like that's a very specific.
Yeah, it's a very iconic almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's an iconic idea, and so when someone comes to you with that, it's nice to have that. It just, you sort of kind of learn to be really flexible and just you're there to serve the project. So whatever vision comes to you, you're there to serve it. So
that's really cool. So it sounds like there's just a large amount of room for different potentials. Do you find that through as you go along with these different clients and these different projects that you're really growing as your skill and your talents and as a person?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. As I buy more sample libraries, right?
Yeah. Yes. As I get more money, I buy more sample libraries and I grow as a person.
Yeah, right. Like it's amazing how much easier it is to write choral music with a choir sample library. But yeah, I mean, it is really fun to do something. I think that balance between the stuff that you're good at, that's sort of like directly in your wheelhouse as a sort of a creative person that you're sort of known for, there's benefit to that because you're kind of coming home and you can really not have to worry about anxiety issues. Is what I'm doing good? But at the same time, sometimes like I was mentioning Staxel, like I had never done like a super conflictless, laid back, chill electronic score before, so that was really fun to do. I mean, a lot of it's just, do you have time to explore it? A lot of it is, do you want to do it? I mean, I mentioned chiptunes at the beginning. I don't think I don't want to say I'll never do a chiptune score, but I doubt it, because I just don't think I don't think I could ever be comfortable. And there's so many people that do so much great work in that space that it's like, I don't know if I have anything to say.
It is kind of flooded, yeah.
That whole gamut, right? Of you're comfortable, you kind of want to get out of your comfort zone, but at the same time, there is such a thing as going too far, I think. But
do you have any advice for anybody who might be thinking about becoming a composer or wanting to at least dabble in it as a hobby?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember that, like, you're a musician, right? And musicians practice, and if your job as a musician is to make music, the way you practice making music is, to make music. So, I see so many people who are just like, quote unquote, waiting for their big break to actually start writing, and you're gonna have a bad time if you wait until you get your first big job to actually seriously write. I mean, you have to just do it, and do it a lot, and do it every day, because you want it to be that when that big job comes to you, that you can just sit down and just do it, because you are so good at what you do that you can just kind of...
Yeah, you nail it. You present yourself. You say, this is what I am. Right. This is what I can do, and I've been doing it for a while, so you either like it or you don't.
Exactly.
Just to quote Shia LaBeouf, don't let your memes be memes. Is that what he said? What?
Something like
that.
No, don't let your dreams be dreams. Just go out and do it. So, like you're saying, don't wait for a chance. Just do what you're passionate about. Do what you like doing. You'll naturally get better at it, because practice, experience. So that's really good advice. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what type of music are you listening to?
I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of recreational listening. I mentioned the good, the bad, and the ugly earlier because I had just been working on a project to sort of do some demos for a sample library that is sort of these Western guitars. So I had just been devouring spaghetti Western soundtracks to sort of get that sound in my mind. So that's what I've been listening to recently. But that's mostly, that's kind of not really recreational. It's more work, but I really enjoy it. So.
Yeah, well, I enjoy them too.
Yeah.
We have something in common. Those are fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing. Nothing else.
So.
And also, do you have a specific video game soundtrack that's your favorite?
Yeah, this is a super cop-out answer. When I see you ask what kind of game soundtracks do you like, I'm
curious if we're thinking of the same one, because I feel like I have a cop-out answer too.
Oh, well, I'll get to the cop-out on my personal favorite one of all time, but in terms of just what kind of genre do you like in game music? I like good game music. I listen to all of it, right?
I like well done music.
I've been listening
Thank
to
you.
Bear McCreary's God of War stuff, which is super huge Hollywood giant orchestra and chorus kind of stuff, but I also like anything that Disaster Piece makes is the most genius thing that has been made by anyone. So there's a big gamut there. So I recently got referenced. Somebody was asking for something kind of like the Florence soundtrack. That soundtrack is so good, just always good. Anyway, and then in terms of what is my favorite game score ever, I'm gonna actually go with. I gotta go with kind of a classic one. It's kind of a boring answer, but I'm gonna actually go with the original score to Halo, because it is so surprising to boot up a sci-fi game and hear monks.
See, my man.
That's
see?
such a great score, and of course everything Marty O'Donnell has ever done is literally perfect. Nothing could be better about it. So.
We were talking about this before, but we were talking about how the Halo theme song is one of our favorite theme songs of all time.
Yeah, it's super good. And it's super informed. It's very aware that it is. I don't want to say mimicking, but that it is referencing this music from this specific era, and it very much sort of adheres to those conventions, but at the same time is able to escape them as it needs to be a score for a sci-fi game instead of a game about 14th century monks.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? It's true.
I guess so.
It must be true. He said it.
I know. My favorite too is the second Halo where you insert the electric guitar. That's my favorite.
I really like ODST, Halo 3 ODST with the jazz. It's like super weird. It's the weirdest thing in the world, but it works so well. Like I don't even like smooth jazz. I love that score. So
the ODST game, the kind of forgotten Halo out of the Halo series.
Yeah.
I guess it's because it was originally just supposed to be a DLC, and then they made a full-fledged game out of it.
Yeah.
I should go back and play that. It's been a while.
Yeah. I saw somebody did like an article about it, or I saw a YouTube video about it, so I was thinking the exact same thing. I should go back and do that. I want to go hear this in context. So.
Do you have any more like game composing music questions?
If I do, I can't think of them.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. Like, all of your answers have been very thorough.
I'll tell you what, if I come up with one, I'll call you at 12, okay?
Yes.
At night.
All right. I might, I just may not answer. I can't promise.
No, you're a musician. I'm sure you don't sleep.
I actually do have a concert tonight I have to perform in, so.
That's cool. What kind of concert?
Oh, it's a local chamber chorus, so I do performances with them every once in a while. I find that it's really good to not only write music but to perform it, so that you don't sort of start to drift away
playing the
from
piano?
Performable music. Actually, this is a singing. I'm going to be singing. So
nice.
That's exciting.
Yeah. He does everything.
I know.
The man of many talents.
I at least play piano and sing. I don't know if that's everything. I hear there's some other instruments, like a viola or something. I don't know. Anyway.
Starbound 2, lyrics featuring Curtis.
I guess, just to close out this podcast, 2 more questions. What are your top favorite things to do in Colorado?
I love to ski in the winter. It's kind of a boring answer because everyone skis in Colorado, but I really do love it. So I go about 5 or 6 times a year. In the summer here, a lot of people don't realize that in the summer here it's really beautiful. So you can go out and, we actually have sand dunes.
Like ATVing and sand dunes and doing like sand boarding.
I wish I could say I was that cool, but I have not done the sandboarding. So far, I have visited and looked upon the sand dunes. I have not yet.
I have gazed and witnessed their existence.
But that's pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, there's a million things to do. Everything outdoors here is really fun to do. So people who like to hike, I don't personally really like to hike. I think people who like to hike, I don't know why you're such a masochist, but if that's your thing.
Well, if it's in Colorado, there's snow everywhere. It's probably really cold, right?
It's actually, we get 300 days of sun a year usually, so it's actually pretty sunny here, and it only gets really cold maybe like a few weeks out of the year. So, sorry about that. But yeah.
Okay, so one more question about the skiing. Have you ever witnessed anybody on a motorized ski?
Snowmobile.
Thank you.
I actually have. I was just driving.
Wait for it.
Oh,
but
okay,
they're dragging somebody on skis, like they're going jet skiing or something on the water.
Oh, like a jet ski sort of situation. I've seen ski patrol take people off the mountain on a
like a sled.
Yeah, like pulling them along on a sled. You kind of think, that's kind of grim. I hope he's okay.
Close. I don't know if this is like, I've never gone out to the internet and searched for this. I probably should have, but I just thought of it now. If I'm giving anybody ideas, this could be the next extreme sport, right?
I do have some friends that like to go Jeep skiing, where they'll get in a Jeep and pull someone behind them. I think that's a little.
Are they tied
unsafe,
to a rope and just being dragged, or what's going on?
Yeah. They just have like a rope and they just pull somebody along a road on skis. So.
I don't know if that's a sport.
It's a thing people do. We're weird out here.
That's fun. No, it's like a skateboard, Marty McFly, Back to the Future.
Exactly, Back to the Future.
Exactly. I might have been thinking something else. Call the police. All right. Next question.
Oh, I guess last question is, what's a quote you live by?
Write every day.
Write every day.
Write every day.
Every single day. Don't go a day with every day you don't write, you get worse at it. So you might as well stay good at it.
Any advice for people who can't write?
Or read good.
Well,
For
Well,
children
if
who
you
don't
can't
know how to
read good, I mean, I don't know. You know, I hear gas stations, maybe. I don't know.
The gas station needs to at least be 3 times this size.
What is this? A gas station for ants? Yeah. Yeah, no, I just like whatever it is that you do creatively, you know, just like I just really encourage people to just, you have to do it a lot. You know, there's this great Ira Glass thing that goes around the internet once a month where he just tells people that if you want to be, you know, on This American Life, you know, if you want to be Ira Glass, you got to just put out huge volumes of work, most of which is going to be utter, you know, insert the beeping sound here, right? And he's right. Like, you just have to do it because that's the only way you get better. Like, just like practicing piano or violin or whatever. I used to teach music, so I think that sort of is where I got this, like, you know, practice instinct, because I had to yell at kids to practice. And, you know, now I'm old, so it just has gotten worse.
That's good, though. That's how you know you're seasoned.
I know. I was about to say, it reminds me of, like, when I was growing up and I was playing the flute. And it was really difficult for me to get the chromatic scale. Mm-hmm. And it took, like, months, like, maybe half a year for me to get it. And the first month I was trying to get the scale going, I didn't practice at all. And my teacher could tell that I wasn't practicing.
Yeah, it's always the worst feeling going into a lesson, and you know that you haven't practiced, and you know the teacher's gonna know.
How do they know? I'm pretty good as far as I know. I mean, not like I practiced or anything, but you should switch to the drums.
Maybe if you're their first student, they don't know, but like if you're not their first student, they probably know.
I was always the last class of the day. So it was like the class where, all right, I'm about to leave. Like, this 30 more minutes, this person better wake me up, or we're gonna.
I don't have time for your shenanigans. You better have practiced. You better.
When I was in college, I missed a woodwinds pedagogy class, and so I had to do makeup for it. So they decided that I should take clarinet lessons. Now, I'm in college, right? So the only people at college who teach clarinet are used to teaching, like, clarinet performance majors. Like, these are, like, seriously good people. And here I am squeaking worse than, like, the worst middle schooler you've ever heard. And this poor woman, I felt so bad for her. I think she had, like, just moved here from Australia. She had that accent going, but every time she would say my name, Curtis, it was just like, I thought she was going to murder me, and she was right. I should have been murdered. I didn't practice. So,
wait, the clarinet or the
the clarinet? I did not practice the clarinet. I will say that it was bad. I was bad. So, you know, that's the other thing to remember. We've all been there.
It's fun, isn't it? Super fun.
Indeed.
So I have a really random question. So, as a composer, have you seen the movie Whiplash?
I've seen, like, excerpts from it. I've never actually seen the whole movie. It's on my, like, to watch list.
I've seen reaction videos too.
Yeah. Okay. Then I will. Then I don't want to spoil it. I just wanted to see what you thought about the.
So, as a former music teacher, and somebody who harps on people all the time to be better and practice more, my first thought when I see little clips of it is, man, that bald guy seems like he's really got his act together. Like, he seems like he's really good. He's like throwing the drums at the kid. That's good. He's gonna practice. He's not gonna come back without practice. I'm joking. I'm actually a total pushover, but you know.
You should practice more. Okay.
Yeah. I've never thrown an instrument at a student, thankfully. But
that's good.
That's good for the lack of lawsuits.
Yes.
Indeed. Yeah, I still am able to, like, function in society. You know, I'm not in prison or anything, so that's you know, it's a plus.
Congratulations.
A plus. And you're performing tonight, so
yeah,
indeed. So.
Yes.
Practicing, I hope. Do you have any final parting wisdom that you'd like to share or anything?
Yeah, any projects, like you talked about the next game you're composing for, but anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I mentioned Staxel. I always try to signal boost them because I think they've sort of made a really cool game. So if you're in the mood for a sort of Stardew Valley meets Minecraft meets Harvest Moon meets Animal Crossing kind of game, I would really recommend you give that a look-see. I think they've done a lot of great work on Staxel. like I said, I'm doing the next Chucklefish game, Witchbrook. So look for more news on that. They just announced the title, so we're still a ways out on that one. But yeah, that should be coming out at some point in the future. Trying to think what else. I have like an album coming out or whatever on May 1st. It's an album of some of the piano work I've done over the years that hasn't ever been released. So I've sort of collected it all into a short little album. So that'll be out on May 1st. It's called Daydreams.
We'll be sure to check that out.
Bandcamp or iTunes or wherever fine
Nice.
MP3 files are purveyed.
Do you release any of your stuff on Spotify or anything like that?
I do. The only thing I don't have on Spotify is Starbound because the track list is so long they won't accept it.
Wow.
What jerks?
So yeah,
They don't even know. They could be making money.
yeah, I know, right? So we're working with them. So we'll get that up eventually, either in parts or I don't know. We'll figure it out. I have a great distribution provider who helps me get stuff up on iTunes and stuff. So I'm sure they'll help me get that going. But yeah, that's and all my other stuff is there. I've got a bunch of albums. I do a lot of royalty-free work. So if you're ever in the need for licensed music for, say, I don't know, like a podcast or a YouTube video.
Why would we need that?
Yeah, I don't know. You can find me on all the royalty-free sites like Audio Jungle and Pond 5 and all that good stuff.
I did see some of your stuff up on Audio Jungle. Yeah, I really like their little previews where it says Audio Jungle every 2 seconds. It's like Audio Jungle.
Yeah, because you got to get that watermark on there so people don't rip your stuff off.
All right. Well, it's been really awesome talking to you. This has been a blast, actually.
Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah. Thanks for listening to the 49th episode, and at least they, will see you next week.
Ooh, yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.